It is Thursday. Vov. Nisan Tovshan Ches. We are in Teres Menachem Sefer Mamar and Shehikdimu in the Maimer of the first night of Shavuos Shehikdimu on page Kuf Samach Gimel at Ois Hey, chapter 5. So, in short, the Rebbe is explaining here that there are three levels in Avodas Hashem, serving Hashem: Iskafia, Ishapcha, and Bittul B'Metzias. Subjugation, transformation, and total nullification, represented in the months of Nisan, Iyar, and Sivan. Nisan being Iskafia, Iyar being Ishapcha, and Sivan being Bittul B'Metzias. And the giving of the Torah is connected to Bittul B'Metzias, total nullification. That is why the Eden, their souls expired when Hashem spoke. And the Rebbe explained that the way one arrives at Bittul B'Metzias at the highest level is by having first the foundation and beginning with Iskafia, with Kabbalah's oil, with the accepting of the yoke of Hashem. And only through that can we move on to Ishapcha and then arrive at Bittul B'Metzias. And the Bittul B'Metzias level of Avodas Hashem, the total nullification, the highest level is connected to the lowest level, to the Iskafia, because they're both, in a sense, both at the core are the idea of Bittul. Even Iskafia is the idea of Bittul, albeit at the very basic and lowest level. Now we go back to the beginning of the Maimer, where the Rebbe quoted the Gemara of the Talmud in Shabbos, that when the Jewish people at Sinai proclaimed Naaseh v'nishma, we will do and we will hear, they were adorned with two crowns, one for Naaseh and one for Nishma, right? And the Rebbe explained that the idea of a crown is Seviv, transcendent, Keser. In Sfiris, it denotes, in divine attributes, it denotes the level of godliness which is beyond Ishtalshalus, beyond the normal chain order of creation. And therefore there must be something down here below that the Yidden did, that the Jewish people did, in terms of their initiative, which triggered that response. So that's where the Rebbe comes back now after this whole explanation to tie that all in. Page Kuf Samach Gimel Ois, chapter 5. Based on the above, we will understand the concept of the prefacing of Naaseh we will do before Nishma, we will hear, we will understand. The Hinei HaPirush, the Nishma, because for the interpretation of the word Nishma, does not refer to the listening with the ear. Nishma means to hear, right? But here, of course, it doesn't mean that. Because what do they say? We will do, and then Nishma. If it means we will do, and then we will hear, how could you do anything before you hear what has been said that you should be doing? So it can't refer to what? To the listening of the ear. To listen. Because before you listen, you don't know what to do. But rather, Nishma here is from the expression of understanding, grasping in the intellect. And what does Naaseh mean? It's from the expression of Iskafia, subjugation. For example, he brings an expression from Halacha that Ma'asin al Tzedakah, one can be forced to give charity, meaning to say there's a discussion among the halachists whether if a person who refuses to give tzedakah could be forced to do so by al-pidin, right? So there's a discussion. The Beis Yosef says that ma'asin al tzedakah, that if a person refuses to give tzedakah, he can be coerced, he can be forced, compelled to give tzedakah. So what's the expression used? Me'asin, right? There's another expression which is brought, Alter Rebbe brings in the Mamorim, get me'usa, a coerced get. We know that a woman has to receive a get willingly. If it's given to her against her will, then it's called a get me'usa, a coerced get, a forced get. So it's from the same root as maisa, asiya. So what do we see here basically? That the idea of naaseh, to do, can also have connotations of doing by rote, as it were, or doing without desire, as it were, with subjugation. You just do, despite the fact that you want, you don't want, you go ahead and you do, right? So that's the idea of nishma and nasa. Nishma means we will understand. If you understand something, you do it because you understand. That's the motivation. Nasa refers to an action that is done not necessarily because I understand. I do it with Kabbalah soil, I do it with the acceptance of Hashem's yoke. So what's the inyan v'akdamas nasa nishma? What's the idea of prefacing nasa before nishma? Shegam kasher ein masik. In other words, it means to say that even when one doesn't comprehend the reasons for the reasons for doing what one should be doing, nonetheless, one compels himself, one forces himself, to serve his service of Hashem, etc. And this is why, when the Yidden prefaced, said Nasa before Nishma, we will do whether we understand or not, that is why this is a preparation for the giving of the Torah. Why? Because through the fact that they said Nasa before Nishma, we will do, irrespective of whether we understand or not. In other words, they have set serving Hashem in a manner of Nasa, we will do, even without understanding, even by through subjugation. And they set that at a higher level, at a higher virtue. Than serving Hashem with comprehension and understanding. For although serving Hashem, when one does comprehend and understand Nishma, is one then serves Hashem out of a sense of pleasure, and serving Hashem out of a sense of duty. Naase comes from a place of kibbutz, means verquetschtkeit, contraction. In other words, one has to force oneself. So which one is a geschmack aveda? More geschmack aveda? A more geschmack aveda is aveda of nishma. Nevertheless, despite that, the Yidden at the giving of the Torah have placed serving Hashem out of a sense of nas, out of duty, at a higher level than serving Hashem out of a sense of understanding and appreciation and pleasure. Despite the fact that the Avodah serving Hashem out of a sense of understanding and comprehension is more pleasurable, nevertheless, they prefaced Naasa, we will do our duty, Lenishma, before even understanding and having any pleasure, even if we don't. If you remember, in the beginning of the Maimon, the Rebbe explained that the idea of Keser, the word Keser, crown, he gave two explanations. One of them was shtika, silence. In other words, non-revelation, right? Where does that reflect itself? In Avodas Hashem, in serving Hashem. That's in the service of Hashem of Naasa, right? That despite the fact that it's shtika, that it's silent, nevertheless we carry on and we do. How is one able to do so? Because one is infused by this level of Keser. So this sense that the Yidden sensed at the giving of the Torah, that they should be doing what doing Hashem's bidding, irrespective of whether they understand or not, irrespective of whether they have a geschmack or not, pleasure in the action. This was a preparation for the giving of the Torah. Hainu, through this they drew down the divine attribute of Keser, of above, which is the idea of Keser Torah, the crown of Torah. Shah Torah he be Keser, because we know that Torah is rooted where? In Keser, in the level of godliness which is beyond the normal chain order of creation. Says the Rebbe, but we know that Torah is what? Chochmah, right? Torah is Chochmah. And it also says the Rebbe, and although the Zohar states that Torah comes out from Chochmah, right? From the level of Chochmah, which is what? The first of the 10 divine attributes. So why am I saying here, says the Rebbe, that Torah is where? Is Keser, beyond the chain order of creation. It is known, says the Rebbe, nonetheless, it is known that which the Alter Rebbe writes in his Hasidic discourse on the verse. And there was a sound that came from beyond the firmament. This is a verse. in, I believe in Yecheskel, right? In Ezekiel, where he talks about the celestial chariot. So he says there was a sound, a voice that came from beyond the firmament. What is Rakia? Rakia, the firmament, is the parsa, the screen that separates. Over here, it would be a reference to separates Atzilus to beyond Atzilus, right? The realm of emanation to beyond the realm of emanation. So the Alter Rebbe explains what was that voice that came from beyond the firmament, from beyond the parsa, from beyond the screen, from beyond the chain order of creation. The Koyal Koyal Torah. This is a reference to the voice of the Torah, right? Torah was given with 5. It says Torah was given b'chamisha kelis or b'shisha kelis. The idea of vahi, right? That Hashem spoke, and the idea of the voice. The voice is a reference to Hashem's voice of giving of the Torah. So vahi koyal me'al rakia, the koyal Torah shel ma'ala me'rakia mafsik. This is a reference to the voice of Torah, which is beyond the firmament that separates. In other words, beyond the parsa. So in other words, Torah indeed is rooted where? In Keser. It happens to be revealed through Chochmah. But what is it at its core? What is it really? It is from Keser. This we will understand also. With this we will understand that which David HaMelech says in Psalms in Kuf Yotes, chapter 119. My tongue will answer, or will utter your sayings, will repeat your utterances, will answer your utterances. What does that mean? That what David HaMelech is saying is that I will repeat what you say. In other words, what does that mean? Shadibur b'Torah b'chinas dvar havaya, on top of Kuf Samach Daled hamedaber b'fiv, because the words of Torah are actually the words of Hashem, which are being spoken through the person's mouth. And in the brackets in Yiddish, the Rebbe says, an Abspiegelung mehadib b'shalamayla. The words of Torah that a person says are actually a reflection of the words above. Like somebody responds, like somebody repeats. After one that reads, one is reading and the other one is repeating. The Alter Rebbe, in the footnote, they refer to Torah Oyer and Shir Hashirim. The Alter Rebbe in Torah Oyer over there in Parshas Yisro explains that when it came to the giving of the Torah, it says, Vaydaber Elikim es kol hadvarim ha'ele leimer. And Hashem spoke all these words, leimer. What does the word leimer mean? So to say. Normally, leimer means that Hashem told Moshe, he spoke to Moshe, and he asked Moshe to repeat it to the Jewish people. That's what leimer means. But the question is asked, when it came to Matan Torah, the giving of the Torah, all the Yidden were present. Not only were all the Yidden present, but all the souls of all generations were present. So what's leimer? There was nobody to repeat anything to. So the Alter Rebbe over there explains, it talks about when a Yid learns any time after Matan Torah, leimer, he's actually repeating what Hashem says throughout all of time. So for example, when we're sitting and learning Torah now, we're actually repeating what Hashem says. Like somebody responds after the reader, somebody repeating what the reader is saying. Right? Why? Because it is Hashem's words that we're repeating. These are words that Hashem gave at Sinai. Says the Rebbe, asks the Rebbe a very interesting question. The L'chorei, in a move on the surface, this is not understood. Everything that happens down here below, every utterance down here below is what?
Is the same thing.
Is by chain order. It comes down by chain order from above. So how is Torah different? Says the Rebbe, the explanation is this: all matters down here below indeed emanate and come from above, right? But they go via this firmament that interrupts the parsa. There's a parsa. There's a screen between above and below, right? So there's an interruption. This is the idea of the screen that interrupts, that separates. Therefore, although everything from below stems from above, but they're not down here below as they are above. They are in a very contracted, reduced form of that. This is not the case concerning Torah, because Torah is the voice beyond the firmament. The firmament, the screen, does not interrupt or block out the Torah. Torah down here below is as it is above. From this is understood that also when the Torah comes down here below, in the aspect through Chochmah, nevertheless it retains the aspect of the crown of Torah. It retains its purity, its potency as it is at the level of Kesed. So in other words, how do we draw that down? If Torah is so great and so powerful that even after being transmitted through Chochmah, it retains its Kesed element, right? The potency of its Kesed element. How do we draw that down here below? It says the Rebbe, in order to draw down the crown of Torah, this is through prefacing, we will do before we will hear, specifically. This is a nullification that is represented in Naasa we will do, despite the fact that it hasn't yet arrived and hasn't yet been comprehended. The Yisayim is even more so, as our sages say, that when Hashem gave the Torah, He lifted Sinai upon the Jewish people like a tub.
Right.
And there was in other words, and He said to them, if you don't accept the Torah, this is where you will be buried. Mikal Medor Rabbi said, the Talmud says, from here there's a great complaint against the Torah, that in other words that Hashem gave it by coercion, right? So Tosfos over there asks, we're going to carry on tomorrow, but just very briefly, Tosfos over there asks on that Gemara, why did He have to force them? They said willingly, Naaseh v'nishma.
Yeah.
We will do. What was the idea of this act? So the Baal Shem Tov says, he explains that for all time, this is to teach us, to teach you that for all times, even if we don't want to sometimes learn the Torah, fulfill the mitzvahs, we should do it nonetheless. That gave us the strength to be able to do so. But that's the idea of Naaseh, which is the idea of Kesed in the person, which triggers the Kesed from above, and therefore they were adorned with two crowns. More about the mitzvah tomorrow, and hopefully at that point we will also finish the Maimon.